Coming up on episode 219 of Wheel Bearings, we've got the Jeep Grand Cherokee L, the BMW M5, the Alpina B8, the new F-150 Raptor, updated GMC Sierras, new Mercedes SL, and more. All that coming up next. Did you know you can support Wheel Bearings directly? Head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia and you can become a patron today. Your contributions will help fund the platforms and tools we use to bring the podcast to you. And exclusives and improvements are already on the way thanks to your generosity. So if you want to be part of an automotive podcast like no other, head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia. This is episode 219 of Wheel Bearings. I'm Sam Abul-Salmon from Guidehouse Insights.
I'm Nicole Wakeland. I'm just going to say my own stuff from NicoleWakeland.com, and you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. Just look for Nicole Wakeland and see all the cool stuff I put up all week. Haha.
Excellent.
I'm Roberto Baldwin. I'm just going to say Engadget this week because I don't want to step on your publicity. Sorry, it's early for me.
Wow. Okay, what you guys missed was this is our second take doing this because Sam forgot who he writes for the first time.
God, Sam, I don't know what I'm doing.
Sam's like, I'm Sam. Wait, hold on a second.
All right. Nicole, what have you been driving?
Trucks. Just trucks. I'm all trucks all the time right now. What I actually had this week was the Ford F-150 Raptor. And although there's a lot to love about the Raptor, it's Halloween week and the color is code orange metallic. So I legit feel like I'm driving a giant, super powerful, capable pumpkin down the road.
Make it pumpkin.
Yeah, it's now I don't know what you would feel like driving.
It would be perfect if you're Cinderella.
Right? Well, I think Cinderella would be jealous. She'd be like, I got this stinking coach and she's got a Raptor. What did I do wrong? So, yeah, it's awesome. I don't know what you're going to do with it the other, 11 months of the year, but in October, you are in the moment with this color. So it's a Raptor. Everybody knows Raptor. It's got this stupidly powerful engine. It's got a 3.5 liter high output V6, 450 horsepower, 510 pound-feet of torque. It has all of the off-road goodies you could possibly want to go out into the desert and drive fast and just have some fun. I have not done that in the Raptor as we have no desert. I have taken it off-road. Here I was just driving around town, which is kind of a wholly different experience. We had torrential rain here in New Hampshire, and I had to drive it about an hour and 45 minutes home earlier this week at night from an event for New England Motor Press Association. And I was honestly thinking okay, this could be torture because big truck, high winds, off-road suspension system, which is notoriously bouncy and unwieldy if you're going, on a highway. It's one thing in the dirt, but on a highway, not so much. Actually, it really well. Considering the number of vehicles that I saw that were not handling the water really well, I thought, okay, this is actually okay. It was good. Driving around town, it's just fun, although I'm parking in the furthest spot in the parking lot once again because it's so big. I'm afraid I'm going to take out lesser vehicles and I won't even notice it. But I did have fun with this. And there's a couple of features that aren't necessarily Raptor features. They're just F-150 features. There's two things that I absolutely love. One of them is the power tailgate that you can power it down and power it back up. So you don't have to lift it up. Just click, click, a little right in the handle, super easy to use. But the coolest thing about the F-150 right now, and everyone's gonna be like, there's way cooler things. No, this is the coolest thing, is that center console table that deploys when you fold the gear shift down. Yeah, you push a little button, the gear shift goes, and it folds completely flat, and then the center console just has a lid that you fold out on top of that. So that entire very large space just becomes a table, whether you're doing work or whether you're just having a snack on the go. Personally, it's our cookie table because we get cookies every week. Yeah, cookies every week at Crumble Cookies. My daughter actually calls it that now. She's like, we have a truck with a cookie table. But it is such a neat feature. You think of the number of times you're trying to do something real quick in your car and you're balancing stuff haphazardly on a cup holder and around the gear shift, whatever. You have a little table. It doesn't sound like a big deal, but I use that thing half a dozen times in the week that I've had this truck. So I'm a fan. The only thing that's, maybe not so much a fan of is fuel economy because it's not the bestest. Oh, I just lost it. I had it and I wrote it down. But you're not going to get, 16 miles per gallon. is your combined fuel economy for the Raptor. Given that gas costs, what does it cost where you are now, Roberto? Do you have to sell a liver, a kidney, something like that?
It's probably about, near my house is probably between $4.60 and $4.80 a gallon.
Ouch. So
for regular or for premium? Because you want premium in this thing.
Yeah, I only use premium for my cars.
So that's premium. So you're going to have to sell a kidney to fuel this thing if you live in California. You might get away with not having to do that in New Hampshire. It's a little bit cheaper here. It's like $3 and change here still. But as gas prices rise, that's going to hurt. So it's not something you necessarily want to take on a long distance road trip just for that reason. But otherwise, I mean, it's a fantastic truck and it has style for miles. I mean, people love it and it has this big aggressive grille. It has all the things you would want. It's like, I am in an off-road desert racing truck. Look at me. And it's like, oh, okay, I will look because it has all of that. So that's my thoughts.
Does it have the fold-down seats, the full flat seats in the front?
I didn't even play with it. It probably does. I have a million option packages. I don't know. I didn't play with that. I was too busy playing with the interior work surface as it's officially listed on this. But you know what I'm going to play with tonight? It has the Pro Power on board, and I'm going to use the Pro Power thing. It's Halloween when we're recording this. And we always plug in a little thing in the garage that plays music. I'm going to plug it into the back of the truck and leave it right in the back of the truck in the driveway playing our Halloween music for the trick-or-treaters tonight. So I'm going to make use of that, too.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So it's been probably 3 or 4 years since I drove a Raptor, the previous generation Raptor. I haven't driven the new one yet. My biggest impression of the previous Raptor was that the suspension felt really soft and kind of mushy. And going around corners, there was a lot of body roll, and under heavy braking, there was a lot of dive. It's great, if you're going over, big boulders and stuff at high speeds.
Right.
But just driving around town, it just kind of felt kind of floppy. How does this one feel by comparison?
Yeah, I feel like it's better, but it is still a truck that is tuned to be in the dirt. It is not tuned to be on pavement. So when you start going fast, you do notice, like if you're cruising down the highway, even at high speed, Roberta's doing a great imitation that you guys can't see in our little Zoom call. If you have uneven pavement or you hit like a little bit like a seam, you will feel it bounce. You will feel it. You get tossed a little bit. You just have to, it's almost like it just takes a little getting used to, as weird as that sounds. If you're driving a sedan all the time and you suddenly climb into this, it feels very unwieldy and huge and sloppy. You drive it for a little bit and you just kind of learn it a little bit and get a little bit more comfortable. I feel like it's better than the old one, but nothing's going to change the fact that this is an off-road truck that's designed to go racing through the dirt and through the desert. And when you're, if you take a corner fast, you get a good bit of body roll. If you hit bumps in the road, it's going to bounce and sway. Does it do it to a point that it feels like unsafe or unwieldy in a way that makes me think, oh, I don't want to drive this? No, it's just something you have to be aware of. And I feel like it's one of those compromises you have to make if you want a truck that is this capable off-road. If you really want this kind of capability, there's a price to be paid. And that means that you're not going to be as comfortable and controlled driving down the highway as you would in just a straight up regular F-150. But it's nothing that I feel like it's a fair trade. And I do think it's better than the last gen.
I think you should expect that if you're getting all-wheel drive.
What have I driven the TRX? Is that who? Yes, yeah. I have driven the TRX. Compared to the TRX, is that what you're going to ask me?
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh gosh, I have to head to head. It's been a little bit since I've been in the TRX. The drive that we did with the TRX, they had us on mountain highways and we were going pretty decent highway speeds, and it was those very loopy, sort of swoopy, you're going around a highway. When you get really into the swoops, it does the same thing I think that this does. You feel that this is on big tires and big shocks and that it's designed to bounce. So you feel the same thing. I don't know that I would say one is superior than the other. It's been a little while since I've driven a TRX. I mean, it's been a good bit. But I think it's one of those things you'd have to drive both, where I think the TRX does better though. And I think this is just a Ram thing. The interiors are better. The Raptor has a really nice interior, but if you want a truly stunning interior that is just amazing, Ram has it beat. So if it was like, oh, well, they're both kind of got that off-road sloppiness, then what do you start looking at? I would start looking at interiors and Ram wins.
Off-road sloppiness.
Fair enough.
Off-road sloppiness. That's the thing. Off-road sloppiness on the highway. That's what it is.
And, I drove the TRX, I think, in like June or July, and it seemed to me, and the same is also true of the Gladiator Mojave. Both of them, are designed to run at high speeds, in the desert, but they both seem to have a lot better body control than I remembered from the last Raptor I drove. How they, obviously, they're not sports cars by
Right.
any means, but they did seem to move around less than I remember of the Raptor. And that's why I'm curious about how the new Raptor compares both against those as well as the old one.
Yeah, it wasn't enough of a difference that I'm sitting here thinking like, oh yeah, the Raptor is way sloppier than the TRX. It's nothing dramatic. So I suppose I would be really cool to drive them back to back. Maybe I'll get lucky and I'll get a TRX in my driveway on Monday. Just because it's hard when you don't. When you
have
don't really
weeks
drive them.
or months between cars, and you're like, wait, how is this car compared to that car?
Right, and you're like, in between, I've driven a hot hatch, a luxury sedan, and a sports car. And now, what was that truck like 4 months ago? So it gets a little hard. But yeah, I definitely would say it wasn't something where I'm thinking, oh yeah, this Raptor is horrible. This is really sloppy compared to the TRX. I think it would be splitting hairs a little bit. I just think the interior, the quietness overall of the TRX is better than what you have in the Raptor.
Yeah, that's I think standpoint.
Did you
feel
say
like the FCA trucks have been a little bit more have a nicer ride on the road than the Ford trucks.
Well, as a whole, I mean, if you were comparing just straight up F-150 to a Ram 1500, Ram wins hands down. It's so much smoother.
So someone send Nicole the TRX right now.
Yeah, somebody send me TRX now, FCA. Or not FCA, Stellantis, whoever you are this week.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
We're saying the wrong company. There is no FCA
Under the sea.
anymore. So, yeah, so that was my week in the Ford F-150 Raptor pumpkin chariot that I had. But then there were, so that was my vehicle this week. Are we going to talk about other stuff later? Or are we going to do like all the trucks all at once, Sam?
Let's come back to the other stuff later.
Cool.
Did you say what the price of the Raptor was?
I didn't. There's no price on my Monroney, but the starting price on this one looks on is $64. So
okay.
I'm going to go with this one. I mean, I'm looking at the list of optional equipment that's on here. This one's probably a good chunk more. I'm going to say at least $5,000 to $10,000 more than that. So it is. It looks amazing. It would be incredible to take this off-road and really race it through the desert, but you got to be able to pay for it, and you got to be able to pay for its gas.
I can't.
Okay. Roberto, what about you? What have you been driving?
So I went to, up until recently, because of, pandemic and all that jazz, BMW would have this annual test fest where they would bring us out and we would drive a bunch of BMWs both on the track and on the road. And the two vehicles I want to talk about the most, I'm not allowed to talk about yet. One is the M4 Coupe. The other one is the 2 Series Coupe. I can't talk about them. I drove them. I can't tell you how it was to drive, but I can say that I drove them. That's fun. I did also drive the Alpina B8, which I love the story of Alpina. I think as coach builders, they're essentially making something like an M car into something fancy. It's like the Maybach of BMW is Alpina. And the fun story is that they started as a typewriter company. So if you ever go to Germany and you have a chance to go and they let you tour it, I got a chance to tour it a few years ago. There are typewriters, Alpina typewriters you can look at and take pictures of, and that's what I did a few years ago when I went to Germany and toured the Alpina factory. But the B8 is an amazing vehicle. It is big. It is expensive. It is beautiful. It is going to set you back. Hold on, $140,000. So for the X-Drive with V8 all-wheel drive system, the Alpina, it is just a wonderful car to drive. I think right now for BMW, they spent a few years trying to really be Mercedes a little bit, trying to less performance, more luxury. And I think that really sort of hurt them as an automaker because they are not Mercedes. Mercedes is Mercedes. Mercedes, you can't, as an overall automaker, you just can't beat the luxury of Mercedes because that is their jam. So I think within the last generation or so of vehicles, they've sort of stepped back and decided to go more performance, and that's what it felt like on this drive. Of course, they also had all the M vehicles, but the Alpina, you get this 4.4 liter V8 with 612 horsepower. I was driving through the desert. It was out in Palm Springs. It's huge. It's comfortable. It's quick. It's this beautiful like forest green. I can't say enough like wonderful things about this very expensive vehicle. I drove the B7 in Europe a few years ago when I did an Alpina drive, and this is the fastest I've ever driven a car on a road. But it was the Autobahn, and I was doing over 200 miles an hour, and it just felt solid as a rock. It was amazing. It was, yeah. And so if you're rich and you're looking for something that's comfortable but also has a little bit of performance, it's tough to beat the Alpina.
How much is that car?
$140,000.
140. Okay.
140.
Cool.
That's,
All right,
that's,
I'll
not,
take
that's not crazy.
But you get a little badge inside. It's like a metal badge, right on the center console. It says Alpina, and then you get the little special shifter, and there's a lot of little like Alpina bits on the outside, so people know
in that
you're.
case, then it's like a total bargain.
You're paying a little something for it. What else did I drive? Hold on, there was a lot of vehicles that I drove, so I have to see which ones I can and cannot talk about.
Did you
Don't break an embargo.
The M5?
I did drive the M5 on the track, and it was fun. I was trying to see what I can say. Okay, yeah, I can say that I have driven the M2 and the M2 CS in competition. I still think the 2 Series is the spiritual successor of what the 3 Series was, which was what the 5 Series was. But the M5, I expected it to be a little bit more unwieldy than it was, and it wasn't. I drove it on the track. It was a blast. Most people people who are buying an M5 are never going to take that thing to a track. It's not really a track car, but you can, and it does really well. So yeah, I drove the M5. I also drove a right-hand drive Mini Classic, somewhere around the mid-90s. You can still get those. The little ones, yes. So they let me. I've actually already driven this car.
Did they let you take it on the road? Like just go for a drive?
No. They don't. There's a skid pad there at. We were at Thermal in Palm Springs, where BMW has their competition school where they'll teach you how to drive like a maniac on the track. And so they had a couple Mini Coopers there, and Mini Cooper Classics, and we got to drive one, which is one I've driven before. And it was a little right-hand drive green Mini Cooper, and I absolutely adore driving those tiny Mini Coopers. As a big guy and a small car, the way that you think I'm 6'3", so you think
I bet you look ridiculous. I wish I'd seen that.
Yeah, I have some pictures. I'll drop the pictures in the thing. But you think, okay, first it's hard to get in, so that's just a given because how tall I am. But once you're driving, the sitting position, because they move, the Mini Cooper, they move the wheels out, they put the engine in sideways. And so you have a little bit more. You have more space than you anticipate inside of a vehicle, even in these old ones. Once you're in it and you're driving, it's fine because the steering wheel doesn't come down like a traditional steering wheel. It's more like a bus. So it doesn't hit my knees. It doesn't
You just described driving this teeny tiny little car like driving a bus. I love it.
Yes, it's like the steering wheel is set up like a bus. I actually have more room for my legs and arms in this 90s-ish. Classic Mini Cooper, because it's the same old-timey design aesthetic that they just never changed, than I do in a Lamborghini Huracan Roadster. Because in the Huracan, my leg is rubbing against the steering wheel, so when I'm driving, I have to move my right hand up and down.
Oh my God, that's super safe.
because the Roadster has less leg room. You can't put it back all the way. So yeah. So whenever someone's like, "Hey, do you want to drive the Huracan Roadster?" I'm like, "Nah, that's okay."
No, thank you.
It's a wonderful car. The regular Huracan I fitted, but the Roadster I was just because it's a Roadster, you lose space. So tiny old Mini Cooper. It's definitely something I would spend money on for whatever reason. And we got to autocross the Mini SE, the little electric Mini, which was super fun because you get that EV torque and an autocross. I did horribly, by the way, because it was the first thing I did in the morning. And
did you take out a whole bunch of cones? Did they get stuck under the car?
I didn't hit any cones. I was just like 2 seconds behind the person who other people, which is horrible on a small track. It was really bad. And while I was doing it, I was like, why do I keep? I wasn't pushing it. It was too early in the morning for me to.
You weren't awake. You needed more coffee before you.
I did need more coffee. Yeah, I really blew it. So yeah. So anyway, a lot of BMWs. Plus, I have the Subaru Outback Wilderness right now that I'm shooting video for the World Car of the Year this week. I think you both have already driven it.
Yeah.
I want to go drive over things. Not. Oh, okay. So Nicole's driven it. So there's two cool people
drove over things. I drove over things in it. I had fun with that.
I when I picked up a friend and there was like this big bump in the road, so I went and towards the bump. As opposed to your usual. I'm like, hold on. So today I might take it out and find some. It's difficult where I live to find off-roading that isn't private land. So I'm going to see if I can find something I can just.
No, I found it very
off-road.
I found it very fun. I thoroughly enjoyed driving it. It was very capable. The nice stretches of like bumpity dirt with little bitty rocks that you didn't really have to slow down on, and you could open it up. I'm like, wee, this is fun.
Yeah, they gave me some chunky all-seasons on it, and I'm very. I've just been driving it on the freeway, doing the regular, just kind of driving around errands type thing. So the next couple of days, I got to do some proper review driving, and I like it. It's surprisingly.
And the nice thing about the new 1 Series and 2 Series is they have a somewhat more modest grill. I mean, they have a more reasonably sized
yes,
grill.
Yes, I can say that. The grill is like the old-timey grill. It doesn't. It's not. Yeah, no Bugs Bunny grill, no nothing. It's just very
although
nice.
Saying it's more modest at this point, like given where it was, that still makes it huge.
This is like, but it's like an eighth of the size of the grill it could be. Is what it is. It could be just huge.
Yeah. This giant thing.
And the new 2 Series Coupe, the back looks nice. It looks really nice. I really liked it. I like that's a proper coupe. I mean, they throw in the word coupe on everything. I mean, SUV's a coupe, everything. Anything with a slight incline.
You just need the tiniest little bit.
Anything that doesn't have a vertical rear window is a coupe.
Yeah, anything.
It's not perfectly straight up. It's officially a coupe.
Yeah, if it's not at a 90 degree, it's all, and now it's a coupe or a coupe if you're fancy and you say cheers to your friends when you leave a party.
Or ciao.
Or ciao. All right, buddy. You're from the same small town I'm from. We never see. Let's slow it down there, Mr. Intercontinental.
All right. Well, I had a second white 3-row Jeep SUV in the driveway, second one in a row. But this time, instead of the Wagoneer, I have the Grand Cherokee L, which is the 3-row version of Jeep's midsize SUV. So this is comparable in size to Ford Explorer, Hyundai Palisade, Kia Telluride. But the one I have is the Summit Reserve trim, which is the high-end, top-of-the-line one, which, interestingly enough, despite having a price tag that's, roughly about $13,000 less than the Wagoneer I was driving, has quite a bit more equipment and has some equipment that I would have liked to have had in the Wagoneer. So this is basically fully loaded. It's got everything. It also has the optional 5.7 liter Hemi, so it's the same engine that was in the Wagoneer, but it's a more manageable size. We were talking before we started recording that I was looking up the specs on the Wagoneer again for review I'm writing, and the Wagoneer compared to a Ford Expedition or a Chevy Tahoe is about 4 inches wider not including the mirrors, which is why it seems to fill the lane so much, because it literally does fill the lane.
It explains why driving it, I felt like it's just like, I'm just going to sideswipe all the things. Anything within 10 feet of the road, you're giving it up. Like,
4 inch.
But as soon as I got into this Grand Cherokee, I immediately felt much more relaxed, because it doesn't feel so massive. It's a much more manageable size for driving around town, or anywhere else for that matter. So this is a stretched version of the Grand Cherokee that the regular 2-row Grand Cherokee is about to launch. It's the new generation. The third row is obviously a lot smaller than what you get in a Wagoneer, but it's still useful for a couple of adults for shorter trips, or for teenagers, kids back there. That's good for that. And this one is the Summit Reserve. I thought it actually has nicer seats than what I had in the Wagoneer. They're a little more supportive. The Wagoneer seats are bigger and broader and flatter. This one's a little more supportive. It's got adjustable thigh support, which you didn't have in the big one, and it's also got massaging seats, which are
the adjustable
seats?
thigh support. No, the adjustable thigh support. You do?
I do, because my proportions are such that if you measure my legs, the distance from my hip to knee is long, and so on a lot of seats I feel like I'm missing something, like there's an empty space underneath my thighs when I'm driving. So that's why if depending on what kind of seats are in the car, if it's got if I can angle the seat cushion, I try to angle it so it's kind of the front is pointed up, angled up a little more, or if it's got adjustable thigh support, I'll pull that out, because for me it's more comfortable.
Okay.
As we've talked about before, everybody's body is different, and so for some people that's going to be useful, for others it's not. But I like having that, and then of course it's also got massaging seats, which I would have liked to have had on the trip to Indy, but I'll take it for they're really good massaging seats in the Grand Cherokee L. It's got the same 10-inch infotainment system with a 10-inch screen with the Uconnect 5, wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto support built in there, and it's just a lot. It's got a lot of the same kinds of things that you find in the Wagoneer, just kind of scaled down a little bit, a little, maybe not quite, a little less than 7/8, a little more than 3/4. So, about 13/16 scale of the Wagoneer, which, as I said, is much more comfortable for me to drive. I like it a lot better. Because it does have the Hemi instead of the Pentastar V6, it is still quite thirsty. And unlike the Wagoneer, the Hemi is not equipped with the e-torque mild hybrid system on this one, so you end up with only marginally better fuel economy. It's been getting about 18.5 miles per gallon versus 17.5 for the bigger Wagoneer. The design of the new Grand Cherokee, it has. It's got the same kind of design language that you see on the Wagoneer, this new Jeep design language, where instead of the Grand Cherokees traditionally have had the grille kind of sloped back. It was a little bit taller. It's shorter and wider on this one, and kind of sloped forward a little bit more. It's very similar to the Wagoneer, and I think it's a good look. And as I was writing about the Wagoneer earlier this morning, I was thinking about the design of it, and I realized one of the things I like about this new Jeep look is they've gone the opposite of the rest of the industry and haven't made the 7-slot grille stretch all the way from the top to the bottom of the front fascia. It's much less ostentatious looking.
It's there, but it's not like in your face like certain other brands.
Yeah. You look at it, you see, oh yeah, Jeep. Yeah. But it doesn't have to
They're not pounding
beat you over the head with it. Yeah. Pretty much all the options in the Summit Reserve trim, including a really nice what do they call it? Tupelo leather seating and surfaces, and open pore wood trim, which as we talked about last time, I prefer that over the glossy wood. This one's got the optional air spring suspension, so you can move it up and down. It's got four-wheel drive, two-range system. So you got 48-to-1 crawl ratio if you want to go off-roading in it. This one has the optional Macintosh audio system in there as well, which
What did you think of that? Didn't. Did you think it was good? Like, did you like the Macintosh? Was it amazing, or did you play with it?
I do. I mean, it generally sounds really good. I had when I drove it in the Grand Wagoneer this summer when we did the drive in New York. I was more impressed with it than this particular vehicle. When I turn up music, I think there's either a bad speaker or something somewhere because if I turn it up too much, there's a rattle in one of the speakers in the front, which I haven't quite been able to isolate. So there's something wrong with that. But in general, the Macintosh system is a really good car audio system. I mean, all of these high end car audio systems now, sound really good. And over the years of listening to too much really loud music, my ears are not as good as they used to be, shall we say? And so, there's subtleties that I can't always hear anymore, but it sounds really good to me. And I don't think anybody's going to be disappointed if they get this system.
Do you have music?
You get.
Oh, sorry. I was going to ask, do you have music that you typically listen to test sound systems? Like, is there songs? Is there like certain things? Or you just like turn it on?
I try a mix of different stuff. Some Led Zeppelin, AC/DC, and some classical music and some jazz. So I go through a bunch of different stuff, and everything generally sounds really good on this one, aside from the one bad speaker. And you do, and because it's a Macintosh, if you go into the Uconnect system, tap on apps, and you can tap on the Macintosh app, and it brings up the little virtual version of the Macintosh, the classic Macintosh meters in the same blue color that they've always had on their audio equipment. So,
one of a colleague, the guy who writes for U.S. News that I ride with a lot. I rode with him on the drive program, and he's super into the audio thing. Like, he picks it all apart, and he has certain music that he listens to. He was over the moon about this Macintosh system. Like, I thought it sounded good, but he, like you were saying, Roberto, he has certain music and certain things that he listens for. He's like, oh, it hits this, it hits that, it hits the other thing. I'm like, so is good? Okay. But he, like, noticed all these little tiny little, finessed things, and I'm like, okay, he's impressed. I think it sounds amazing.
Cymbal ring and
right. He's like, there's all these things, and he loved the little dial thing. He's like, woo! So yeah,
that's the most exciting thing. I haven't driven in it in
99% of people that aren't audiophiles will love it. They'll have no complaints about the audio system in this thing at all. And the 1%, well, they'll find something to complain about almost any audio system, except for the one they built in their home theater.
I spent $20,000. Everything
he
sounds.
He would do that.
So
he'd be like, I live in an apartment with like no heat, no electricity, but my sound system on my radio, my stereo is kick butt. Look at this, but you can't eat. Who cares?
Who cares?
So all in, this Grand Cherokee L came to $68,725, which is not inexpensive, but you can also get the Grand Cherokee L for a lot less than that. If you start at the base models, like if you start with a Laredo, the two-wheel drive Laredo starts at $38,635 and $40,635 for the four-wheel drive, and it goes up from there, as is usually the case with whatever trim level you choose. So if you're looking for a three-row SUV, that's in that mid-size class that we've talked so much about, this is, I think if you were to go like the middle of the lineup, with a Latitude or Limited,
okay, come here, look.
This is highly competitive with the likes of the Telluride or the Palisade or the Explorers.
Nothing there.
And then if you want all the luxury stuff, you can go quite a bit more expensive than those.
Sam, I have a question. Do you think it matches up? Like, because with Telluride and Palisade, I feel like the interiors of those are really quite good, especially for the price. Do you feel it matches up with an Explorer?
Good job.
With Explorer or with Grand Cherokee?
Yeah. We were saying you listed the Explorer on your list, didn't you, just now, of vehicles that you can compare?
Yeah, in terms of size, and the class.
Size, okay.
It's in that same size class. In terms of the interior, I think the Hyundai and the Kia have better interiors than the Explorer does.
Okay.
And then this kind of goes beyond that. I haven't had a chance to take a look at those mid-level trims that are on here that are in that same price class with the Hyundai and Kia to see what those are like. But generally, anything from Stellantis in recent years has been really good. This is the kind of interior that you would expect in a Genesis. I guess the Summit. And this is the interesting thing about Jeep, and the same was true with the Wagoneer and the Grand Wagoneer. The Jeep brand is kind of spanning across multiple categories now. At the bottom end of the entry level of the Jeep brand for any of their models, they're priced more closer to what we would consider the mainstream brands. The Fords, Chevys, and Hyundais and Kias. And then they continue on up into what we would consider the premium brands. So this Summit Reserve is it's more comparable to a Genesis GV80 than it is to a Hyundai Palisade or a Kia Telluride in terms of what you're getting, the equipment you're getting on it, and the level of the fit and finish and materials in it. And in that context, $68,000 for this versus comparable to slightly more for a GV80, I would say it's very highly competitive with that vehicle, and probably better off road than the Genesis.
Probably.
So, it is a Jeep after all, and the Genesis you can't get a 2-range 4-wheel drive system, things like that. Right. All right, let's move on. So there was a topic that we talked about last year before the two of you joined the show about the right to repair bill that was on the ballot in Massachusetts last fall, which passed by I think a fairly wide majority. And that right to repair bill was for vehicles that was demanding that automakers make the telematics diagnostic data that they have available. Open that up to make it available to independent service providers. So rather than just being available to dealers, it would be available to anybody to access that. And there were some at the time. I support right to repair, but I also had some concerns about the way that particular measure was structured because of opening up vehicle connectivity data to anybody, that I think has the potential for some cybersecurity issues, and I think pretty much all the automakers were opposed to that particular measure, but it passed anyway, and so now Subaru has responded. If you buy a 2022 Subaru in Massachusetts, you no longer have access to Starlink telematics. It's not even offered. They just turn it off if you buy it in Massachusetts.
Wow. Did they just do this?
They decided not. Just this week they announced that they were disabling it. So for all the 2022 models. So if you buy a Subaru in Massachusetts, no connectivity for you. What do you guys think about that?
I think I'm in the same boat as you because on one hand, the right to repair is, that's a huge thing. There's a lot of, we can go back to Apple, who's fought this. John Deere especially has been very anti-right to repair, which has put a lot of farmers into, essentially stock paying, way more money than they should to get their tractors fixed. And then with the automakers, I think there are things that that should be open to individuals or to third-party shops. But again, with the privacy implications of telematics, like you go to a third-party shop, and random mechanic is, he sees, or he or she sees like a girl or a boy who's bringing a vehicle in, and they, think, hey, I'm going to be a stalker. So that's my, there's this concern. I mean, I don't know if that's going to be worse than if you brought it into the dealership, where you pay a lot more money to be stalked by a creeper. So it's, telematics is such a weird thing to give access to widen access to when it comes down to it. So I don't know where I sit on this one, to be perfectly honest. On one hand, I'm like, yes, we need the right to repair. On the other hand, I'm like, people deserve their privacy, and I'm curious, the telematics information, how is that? I mean, is it relevant? How relevant is it to fixing the vehicle, as opposed to, do you need that information in order to fix the vehicle?
But I wonder if it's not, like, if it's one of those things, Roberto, where it's not, like, you don't necessarily need the telematics to fix the vehicle, right? But is there some part, all that code and everything, there's a lot of complexity back there, and you don't know what pieces integrate with what other pieces behind the scenes. And you wonder if, by giving you this extra stuff, do we also give you all this additional information that you don't need to, like, how much, opening one thing, do you open them all, and even if you don't need it,
That's
it's like, well, if we turn this off, we've turned off these 18 other things, we can't turn off one without turning off the other. And like you said, you don't necessarily want the guy fixing your car to know where you live, where you work, where you take your kid to dance class. Like, I get it. I don't know how you fix that. I don't know how you would determine what information you could give and what information you couldn't, or where you could, as a consumer, could you, make it available now but not available then? Like, I don't know. I don't know how you would do it.
I mean, it can be. It's a problem that can be solved within software. You can firewall certain data, but it's very, very expensive. And if we've learned anything over the last few years, when it comes, the automakers have learned anything over the last few years, is that software is super difficult. Ask Volkswagen and their infotainment system in the ID3 and the ID4. It's just it's incredibly difficult. It's far more difficult than I think automakers took into consideration beforehand, because they were using a lot of just sort of off the shelf stuff, or they built like very easy to use, easy to build, and sometimes very easy to hack systems. And so now you have this situation where Subaru isn't Ford, Subaru isn't Volkswagen. Subaru, they have money from Toyota, but they're not Toyota. Can they afford to go through and fix this and then have to pull all these vehicles in because they don't have over-the-air updates, and then push the code and then hope everything works, because it's going to be difficult for them to test this, because now you're testing it on the road with real people, or just turn it off. They're like, you know what? Let's just turn it off. And I think that's where
the easier solution.
It's the easier solution,
more affordable.
Yeah. When it comes down to, like, okay, we're going to be spending millions of dollars to fix this problem, or hundreds of thousands of dollars, or however much, and they looked at that, and then they got a spreadsheet out, and then they looked at how much money they were going to lose from monthly subscribers to Starlink, and they said, you know what?
Not enough. Yeah.
It's not enough.
Yeah.
This is what the spreadsheet says, and the spreadsheet says we can't separate this data from this data, like, in a way that's affordable or makes sense financially for us as an automaker.
Which is fair. I mean, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch as we go forward. As automakers are relying more and more on connectivity for revenue streams. I mean, GM at their investor day a couple weeks ago, we talked about this. I think, about they announced their Altify platform for software to allow developers to bring third-party apps into GM vehicles on their new GM vehicles, and during the investor day they talked about doubling their revenue over the next 9 years by 2030, from 140 to 280 billion dollars, with a lot of that additional incremental revenue coming from services built on connectivity. And I'm skeptical if they can actually get that much more revenue out of that, but that's a whole other issue. But every automaker is looking at connectivity as a way to generate new revenue streams, and even for a smaller player like Subaru, that's going to be something important that they're going to have to consider. And so companies are going to have to figure out a way to do this and maintain security of these systems so that, if you open portals for third-party service providers to get in and do stuff with the vehicle, either extract data from the vehicle or provide services to customers, they're going to have to find a way to do that without allowing bad actors to get in and either take remote control of the vehicle or steal data or any number of other bad things that could happen. So it's going to be a challenge for everybody over the next decade to figure this out. Speaking of over-the-air updates, a lot of customers that have bought Ford F-150s, the 21 Ford F-150s over the past year, as well as the Mustang Mach-E, have been waiting anxiously to get their BlueCruise system enabled via an OTA update. The vehicles many of these vehicles were built with the hardware to support BlueCruise, and that's Ford's hands-free system like Super Cruise. Turns out they're going to have to wait a little longer, like into the first quarter of 2022. That was supposed to be out about now, and there was a report that came out a few days ago, and I reached out that it was delayed. And I reached out to Ford for clarification on that. And it's not BlueCruise itself is not actually delayed. That's actually the cars and trucks they're shipping from the factory now have it on there and it's enabled. But for customers that got their vehicles earlier in the year that are waiting for the over-the-air update, Ford is still having some challenges with the OTA update system. And rather than risk pushing it out and maybe bricking somebody's vehicle, they're holding back on doing the OTA updates until they get all those issues sorted out. So that's going to be sometime after the first of the year, according to Ford.
On the one hand, I mean, that's good because you're there. I mean, if it's a security concern, if it's a bricking concern, like all these concerns that you should be worried about when it comes to over-the-air updates or just updating, vehicle-grade software, that's great. On the other hand, everyone, there's probably a lot of people who had F-150s or Mach-Es that were going to drive a long distance to visit family for Thanksgiving or for Christmas or for whatever holiday, they may be celebrating, or just for the winter break. I mean, kids get time off for winter break, and they were like, yeah, I'm going to use BlueCruise on the interstate. It's going to be oh no, wait, never mind.
Wah wah.
And you
just
still
gonna
have
have
adaptive
to keep my hands on the wheel.
Yeah, you still have adaptive cruise control, and most of the time, I mean, Super Cruise, BlueCruise, my hands are like literally hovering over the car over the wheel most of the time. Like
I can't let go. I can let go of the wheel, but I'm still like, any minute now, technology's going to fail me, and I'm going to hit a tree, and I don't. It all works, but I'm just like the whole time.
So I want to, I mean, I'm always a fan of having safer software being pushed to vehicles as opposed to, let's say, a beta that you have to pull back on that just makes cars stop. Tesla. I'm just going to say Tesla. It doesn't matter. What are they going to do?
Or just randomly turn into oncoming traffic,
Yeah, just for funsies. Ooh. So if you have to delay software for the sake of safety or security or privacy, then that's fine, especially if it's only like a few months.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Roberto, you got a chance, I think it's probably a couple of months now, to go to finally try out the new Mercedes-Benz SL, and that embargo finally lifted this week. Tell us about it.
So I didn't get to drive the Mercedes SL. I've been invited to drive it now at some future date, but I was allowed to sit in it while they drove it around with me in the car. So so automakers, what they'll do is they'll have these like test vehicles that they're testing, and occasionally they will say, hey, this is a highly anticipated vehicle. Would you like to come and sit in the car while an engineer drives it and talks to you about it? And that's what I did. And it's a very odd thing to do and to write about because you're not driving the car, you're just sitting in the car while someone else drives it. So it's sort of this very weird. I assume it's what it's like when I put my friends in the test vehicles that I get, review vehicles I get at home. I'm like, isn't this great? And they're like, yeah, this seems great. And they're basing their experience on how I'm driving a said vehicle. I mean, they're gonna. So, but from sitting in the car. it felt a bit more nimbler. It felt a bit more sporty, and that's what the Mercedes has been going for with the new SL. I think, they kept saying that, we customers are saying this, and we're hearing this, and that they wanted something that was a bit more light, that wasn't as bloated as the previous generation SL. And so that's what they built. And from the passenger seat, that's what it felt like. It's a very pretty car. It's comfortable. I think when you get a Mercedes, there is the and the SL is an AMG vehicle. So there's it's going to have that AMG fun and power and performance, but it's also a Mercedes, so you have to have that comfort level in there. You have to have the ability to drive around town and pick fancy people up and drive them around and drop them in fancy places. Not that I am fancy. I'm the least fancy person that sits in the Mercedes at any time. But others, they still want that very comfortable, luxurious Mercedes experience. And, for a car its size and for what it does, it has that. So from my experience sitting in the passenger seat in Colorado on the freeway in traffic and on a mountain road, it was a very comfortable experience. Unfortunately, we didn't get to put the roof down, not the roof, the top down while I was driving, because we drove through where we were driving, there was a lot of dust. And so I didn't get that. Other people did who were on that trip got to do it, but not me. But it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I'm not sad. But so I'm really looking forward to driving it in I don't know whenever that is going to happen in the next few weeks or few months. And I will have more information once that happens. But yeah, SL, I mean Mercedes, when you talk to people who are sort of on the peripheral of cars, if you show them the Mercedes Gullwing or the Mercedes SL Roadster from back in the day, that's automatically their favorite car. There are two sort of like favorite zeitgeist vehicles. It's the Gullwing and the Roadster that killed James Dean. Those are the two. Yeah. The Porsche Roadster or Speedster. Those are sort of like, people see those and are like, oh yeah, that's my favorite car. Oh yeah, they don't have to know anything about the vehicles. They just know they're shiny and silver and they look cool. And I think the new SL has a lot to sort of live up to. It doesn't have Gullwing doors though, unfortunately, because it's a Roadster and the doors would just fly off.
But one interesting thing that they changed on this one is they went back to a soft top instead of the retractable hard top that they've had in the last couple of generations. Did they talk at all about why they chose to do that? Trying
to think back on that drive. I don't think they talked about it. I when it comes to these sort of vehicles, the soft top, I cut out. It was quiet it's Mercedes. They're going to work their darndest to make sure that even their soft top is quiet. It's definitely not a Wrangler. It's and so Bronco. Or a Bronco. Yeah, it's definitely not, but it is, it was quiet with it on there. I think their soft tops are the seal is really nice on those. That I'm always sort of amazed at how well Mercedes does their soft top convertibles it's just like, it's like hermetically sealed, even though it's a soft top. So I think it's probably a little bit of weight, a little bit of cost saving, a little bit of engineering. I mean, the engineering of a hard top is a bit more difficult when you're making it retractable versus a soft top. And so overall, you're saving a lot of everything, really, from money to weight to everything in between for a little extra, what do you call it? Protection from the elements. And I'm sure they're probably going to sell more of these in California, where I'm sure the main areas are California, Florida, places where you don't really get a lot of weather. Well,
New Hampshire, you don't think is their target market.
Yeah,
Texas.
they're not. I don't think there's a big pull for Mercedes SLs, Roadsters in Montana or
probably not.
There's probably someone's buying it, but that car is being garaged.
One person.
Yeah, that person is garaging it and then
someone's
driving
got a
it.
private racetrack.
And 10 other cars to drive and all the other weather that they have to encounter.
10 other cars to drive. Yeah, I drove an old Mercedes SL. I forget which year.
Yeah, you
a few
talked about
months
when
before that.
Monterey this summer.
Yeah, Monterey, and that was outstanding. I absolutely love driving old cars, though, so that's just an old car nerd issue, though. It could have been anything, really. If it was an old car, it's bad.
Excellent. All right. For 2022, GMC is launching a refreshed version of the Sierra, which I actually drove this summer out at the Milford Proving Grounds when they were showing off the new version of Super Cruise that's going into that. And at that time, the trucks that we were in still had the interior all covered up. It had camo on the front, so we couldn't see the revised front end. But they've actually done the full reveal on the new Sierra. And there's also an updated 22 Silverado coming, which Chevy hasn't shown off yet. And I think Nicole, did you see it when you were here in Detroit?
Actually,
I know
I did. It wasn't
they did an online virtual reveal.
Yeah, this wasn't actually when I was there for the NACTOY drive. It was separate from that. They flew some folks out to Detroit to take a good look at specifically the two new trims, the Denali Ultimate and the AT4X. Denali Ultimate is the next step up in the Denali. It takes it even further towards luxury. And the AT4X is the next step up in off-roading and makes it more rugged and more off-roady. The first thing, they had them both there for us. We couldn't drive them, but we could get a good look at them. They had designers there talking about why they did what they did and what they were going for and all the little details of it. Here's the thing, GMC is like, it's not like a luxury brand, but it's like an upscale brand, right? So it's kind of like in the middle between the average car and the Mercedes genuine luxury stuff. And
kind of bridges it, kind of like what we were talking about with Jeep earlier.
Yeah, it's like in the middle, right? And depending on when you got in their car, something we're like, it feels like their base trim is still fancier than other guys' base trims of their vehicles, right? But they didn't always nail it on how nice they got inside. I got to tell you, this Denali Ultimate, the thing is beautiful. Like the quality of the materials, the attention to detail that they put into the interior and the exterior of this, I was genuinely impressed. You don't feel like they phoned it in at all. They did some, like on the outside, okay, they have this, they call it Vader Chrome, and all I can think of is Darth Vader, and I don't think that's what they mean at all, but all I can think of is Darth Vader. And they have this on the chrome, on the grille. They have the badging is that same Vader Chrome, and it gives it kind of a neat little finish. They have these 22-inch wheels that are different than they are on other vehicles in the lineup. It gets standard stuff like the multi-pro tailgate, and there's a Denali premium suspension and adaptive ride control. You get power assist steps. But really, the way they did the looks on this, and it's like when you're buying a luxury vehicle, you want the performance. Okay, you can get the performance in other versions of the Sierra. If you want the performance, but you want it to look really pretty, holy cow, like there's all these leather trims. They have Mount Denali is like embossed onto some of the fabric and leather trims and etched into some of the wood.
Yeah, it's a topographic map of Denali.
Yeah, like there's so you look at it, you're like, what is that? You're like, oh my gosh, that's how cool. Like it's the Denali Premium. They put that map in there. There's like a micro suede headliner. The seats, we were talking about seats, 16-way power adjustable massaging front seats. Sam, your thighs will be properly supported in this vehicle. It looks, and it's not, what I really liked about it is everything felt like a package. Like sometimes you sit down in these really nice vehicles, you're like, oh wow, they really did use a really nice leather. But there's no design to this. The design is just meh. Or, oh, there's this beautiful wood, but it doesn't match up with the leather, or it just doesn't feel cohesive. This is a stunning interior. I know I was raving about Ram's interiors because we were talking about just in general, Stellantis does a really good interior right now. I think GMC has done really well on this Denali Ultimate. I think when you see the pictures and it looks good in the pictures, when you see it in person and you actually feel the materials and see the texture of it and you sit down and you take a seat, they did a phenomenal job in this. So I think this, it's not just, oh, we're going to put Ultimate on the end of Denali and call it something fancy. No, we're putting Ultimate on the end of Denali, and we really did make this even better than the existing Denali trims. So I was super impressed with it. But I'm an interior person. Like, I want my interior on my fancy car to feel like the interior of a fancy car. I don't like it to feel phoned in. The other thing that they did was the AT4X, and that one, they're going for more of an off-road kind of thing. And it does the same thing. It's weird. It's not the elegance of the Denali Ultimate, but they did the same thing where it's like, we're going to give it these really cool interior look that is very unique to it, but again, makes it feel a little bit more rugged, a little more durable, but still looks like something special. It doesn't have the same like refinement of the Denali Premium, or Denali Ultimate, but it shouldn't, because it's looking to be a little bit more rugged and off-roady. And they did so much stuff to make this a genuinely capable vehicle. There's like a giant list. They have special springs in this that can travel more. They have a 2-speed transfer case with selectable drive modes. They've got front and rear electronically locking differentials. They've got a unique off-road chassis and suspension that they've calibrated specifically for this. It's not the same way as it is in other versions of the Sierra. There's a transfer case shield. They've got like these special wheels with, 18-inch black wheels with mud terrain tires. And they've done a lot to make it not just more capable, and it's a giant list of the features, but they've made it look unique to its class, unique within the Sierra lineup. So 2 new trims, got a really good look at them, genuinely impressed. And my feeling was that if you looked at the GMC Sierra and you've thought, okay, yeah, it's cool inside, but it's not really as cool as I feel like it should be. When these come out, give them a look, especially that Denali Ultimate. Go look at it, because the interior of they've done an amazing job. It's like they've leveled up and done something much better.
I was looking at the price of the Denali Ultimate, and they better have put up some. They better stepped up.
But it feels like if you're buying a truck like that, right? You're that same guy who's buying a $140,000 Mercedes. You're not, price is only a small part of it. You're looking to have the experience of driving in a luxury vehicle, and you don't want it to be in a sedan. You want it to be a luxury truck. And like I said, I haven't quite felt like GMC knocked it out of the park with the Sierra before. It was like they were nice, but they weren't really luxury. This one, you're like, wow, okay. So this is not cheap, but I would pay for this. It really looks stunning in person. Really, really beautiful interior.
What I don't know if we talked about it last time, but the Hummer, you drove the Hummer when you were here for the NACTOY drive.
I did.
How was the interior in that? Was it production representative, or was it still, kind of prototype, not really entirely finished?
I believe it was it didn't feel prototype. So although there could have been components in there, they didn't specifically say it was prototype. So I'm going to say it was either production or pretty darn close to it. Didn't have any of the hallmarks of not being ready. I think the thing that's different about the Hummer is just think about the brand, what it was before it was the electric vehicle, just big. Great, big everything. Big climb over stuff, big wheels, big vehicle, big gas consumption, big everything. It was big. And when you sit down in the Hummer, it feels very nice, but it still has that sort of chunkiness to it in a good way. Nothing's cute and delicate and light. It's all like, yeah, this is a burly vehicle. I can take on anything. It has this rougher, tougher interior to it. The accents, nothing's cute and delicate and like, there's no, oh, this is finesse, this is that. It's like, that's metal, that's, leather, that's, yeah, you could do anything. It just is much more aggressive and in your face, and there's nothing teeny tiny delicate. Everything's big and large and bold.
You can drive it to the moon.
You drive it to the moon if you want to. Yes. Yeah. So it's a very different interior. Upscale, but not aiming for that same kind of like, this is a luxury vehicle feel that the Denali Ultimate is aiming for. Okay.
One of the other things that's changing for the the 22 Sierra is the base engine, the 2.7 liter turbo 4-cylinder that they offer. It's getting 20% more torque, same horsepower as before, but it's going up to 420 foot-pounds of torque, which is a lot for a 4-cylinder engine. That's comparable to what you get with the 6.2 liter V8 that's in the Denali.
Yeah. Yes.
Let's see what else.
Turbo, yo.
And then the 13.5-inch center touchscreen is in there. It's the new infotainment system is based on Android Automotive, and it's got full Google Automotive services in there. So you get Google Maps and Google Assistant and all the other stuff that they offer in there. So much like what you get with the Polestar.
Yeah, and it does get a version of Super Cruise that is supposed to be trailer capable, so you'll be able to use Super Cruise.
Right. Yeah, I tried that out this summer.
How was that?
It's really good.
Yeah.
It's really impressive what it can do. I've always been a little dubious about hands-free driving systems. With Super Cruise and BlueCruise and others. Because they say it reduces the driver workload. Yeah, you don't have your hands on the wheel, but because you're having to supervise it more, it's creating new cognitive workloads, and so it's different. It's not. I don't find it to be as relaxing as some people claim. To be able to take your hands off the wheel and sit back and just watch the road and be constantly vigilant to take over at any moment when when the system doesn't know what to do. But when you're towing a trailer, if you've ever towed a heavy trailer, that is that can be kind of a nerve-wracking experience under normal conditions. So if you can take your hands off the wheel and you don't have to worry about steering, and you can focus more on just watching for the watching the road, but also feeling for the with the trailers moving around in ways that it shouldn't be, I think that might actually be a better use case than just normal driving hands-free.
Did you get to try it with a trailer, Sam? Did they let you try it with a trailer?
Yeah, we tried it towing a 5,000-pound trailer. We also got to try out the auto lane change, which is a new feature of this. So now that currently on the Escalade and on the CT4 and CT5, you can get Super Cruise, and it's got lane change on demand. So if you just tap the turn signal stalk, the sensors will look to see if the lane is clear, and then it'll change lanes for you with your hands off the wheel. The updated system that's launching with Sierra, and it's going to be provided to the other vehicles as an OTA, is actually automatic overtaking. So you don't even have to tap the turn signal stalk unless you want to override it and you don't want it. So if it sees, if the vehicle in front of you is going slower than your set speed, so if you're set at 70 miles an hour and the vehicle in front of you is going 65 or 60, it'll look to the left, see if the lane, and it always prioritizes passing on the left, as it should, uses proper lane discipline. It'll, if it's clear, it will move over to the left lane, pass the vehicle, and then go back into the cruising lane and get back, in the lane you were in originally. And only if you decide you don't want it to change lanes, then you just tap the turn signal stalk and it'll cancel. So it won't. So it'll let you know before it does it, and you have the opportunity to override it and tell it not to do that.
I did get to try that. They didn't have a trailer that we could tow, but they have the new Super Cruise in the Hummer, and I did get to try. That was the first time I tried Super Cruise, period, the end. So I don't have any old version versus new version. But I did think it was a little weird, but it worked really well. Like, to just be on the highway and know you're coming up on that car. You're like, okay, it should stop. It should stop. It should stop or slow down. And then it's like, no, I'm just going to turn to the left lane. We're going to go around and we're going to go back. And what I liked about it is sometimes with all these hands-free type stuff, you feel like the spot where it determines it needs to slow down is either way too early or way too late. So you get nervous as a driver because you're like, it's not really seeing that, or you think, now I look like a nervous driver. The people behind me don't know why I'm slowing down. I thought the Super Cruise was really good at saying, like, this is about where a normal person, a human, would say, I need to get into the other lane or brake, and it would do that. And I thought that was impressive. Although like I said, it takes a little getting used to that. It's not really slowing down because it knows it's just going to speed up, change lanes, and come back in, just like you wouldn't slow down if you didn't have to. But I thought that was neat. But I did not get to experience the towing to see how that went.
One of the interesting things that the GM's doing when you're towing is, obviously if you've got a 5 or 7 or 10,000 pound trailer behind you, the way the vehicle responds is going to be different. Your stopping distances are longer. The vehicle's not, you can't change lanes as fast and those sorts of things. And so what it does is it actually estimates it based on your acceleration and braking. It estimates the weight of the trailer. So when you go to accelerate and you've got a trailer hooked up, for a given amount of throttle input, under normal circumstances, you would get a certain amount of acceleration. And if it sees the acceleration is less, then it's assuming that you've got either a heavy payload or a trailer behind you. And so it estimates what the payload or trailer weight is, and then it automatically adjusts the following speeds. So your gap, if you're driving without any payload or a trailer at 70 miles an hour, your gap might be, let's say, 50 meters, at 70 miles an hour. It's probably going to be a little more than that, but just for example. And then if it decides, okay, you've got a 5,000 pound trailer hooked up, it will automatically increase that to, let's say, 100 meters or 150 meters to make sure that you've got enough distance to safely stop or respond to things that might be going on, even when you've got that trailer hooked up. So that's, they did some really smart things in there, which hopefully when Ford gets around to adding trailering capability with BlueCruise, they do something similar. In Ford's case, they actually have the sensors built into the trucks now to actually measure the load at the hitch and also on the bed, so they can directly measure that instead of estimating it based on the vehicle responses.
That's pretty slick.
Yeah. All right. Next up, this is actually came as a result of one of the questions that was submitted from Bryn Barenhausen about is the next financial crisis looming, and had a link to a story in Jalopnik, which then linked to the original story from Consumer Reports about consumers paying too much for car loans. And looking through this article, Consumer Reports did a study. They got data on 858,000 car loans from 17 major auto lenders, and found some pretty startling data in here in terms of the payments that people were making, the interest rates that they were getting, and how much people were just paying for cars. And it turns out, actually, looks like most of the data is actually from used car loans, which is actually more problematic, I think, in most cases than new car loans, especially if you, or at least the examples that they reference in the article are all from used car loans. With new car loans, most new car loans are done through the captive lending arms of the automakers like Ford Credit or GM Financial or Stellantis's financial arm. But when you go to buy, if you need to finance a used car, you're kind of more out, in the weeds. Anything's possible as to where the financing is going to come from, and a lot of times, used car dealers will, they will sometimes go to some shady sources to get the financing. In the article here, there's a graph showing the total amount of American auto loan debt from 2010 when it was 0.71 trillion, so $710 billion. It's now $1.42 trillion in 2021. So it's doubled.
Wait, what was that? What was that? Doubled?
Debt.
Holy cow.
Yeah, it went from $710 billion to $1.42 trillion in the last 10 years.
That's a lot of money.
The startling thing, from this data they found is just the range of interest rates and payments that people are making. They give this example of a Maryland resident that had good credit, financed a 2018 Toyota Camry with a 19% APR loan,
What?
and a monthly payment of $823 for a used 2018 Camry. That's like buying it on a credit card.
Why would anyone? Okay, what super confuses me about that is it's not even like, oh, your car payment's kind of high. Why would you set yourself up for that kind of car payment for a used Camry? Like, if you're that, what? My head wants to explode with that.
Yeah, this particular loan is due to be paid off in late 2025. If the borrower goes the full term of the loan,
how much is it going to be?
They will have spent $59,000.
On a Camry.
About double what the car was worth.
On a used Camry.
A used Camry.
I mean, I'm nothing against Camrys. Great little sedan. Like, I love you, Camry. I love you, Toyota. You're great. But I'm not paying $59,000 for one. Oh, my Lord. So where does that come from? Are people just not... So is it really the car industry, or is it that consumers just need a lesson in credit?
I think it's a bunch of different. I think customers need a lesson in credit. No one is taught like how to do like real finances in high school. Instead, we have all these other classes, but I didn't know about how finances work in high school. Because you think, oh, well, it's 20%, so I'm just going to pay $20 extra. No, that's not how it works. It's always, the way credit is offered up to people, especially in a high, and also buying a car at a dealer, used or new. It's such a high stress because they're just throwing numbers at you, and they're essentially they're just trying to confuse you. They're just continuously like trying to confuse you. So I think people end up get super stressed out and sign up for things that they don't realize what they're doing, because it is such we got to do it because someone's going to come and get this car and you need a car right away. And there's a lot of issues that are going on right here where there's people just don't understand how APRs work. B, sometimes that's maybe where they're buying the vehicle is where they're at. There's also the idea, well, this car just exploded. It doesn't work anymore. I need a car right away. And you just sort of take whatever's first. And then the shadiness of buying a vehicle from car dealerships. I mean, we can talk about, there's this great dealership, this is great, but every time I've gone to buy a car, there's always somebody who's trying to pull one over on us. Every single time.
And it's either really, like, we know what we're doing, right? The three of us are like we walk in, we know what cars are what, we know what's being offered. You can't tell us it's one thing if it's another. We're the consumer that the auto dealership doesn't want, because we actually know enough to get exactly what we want and not pay more for it. And if you're trying to sell me a line of bull, I'm going to know it. I'm out. Mm-hmm. But I feel like every time I've walked in, without fail, like you said, Roberto, there is something. This is the last one on the lot. We will never get another one. This is the last car in the history of cars. No, it's not. You have another truck coming. Like, there are other cars out there. Even if I don't get this car from you right now at that price, there is another car, even now, where supply is tight, and maybe you can't get your seats with a thigh extender, but you can still get a car that's going to work for you. There's still a car out there. Like, don't just walk out of a dealership like, well, if I wanted that one, I had to buy it. I had to buy it right now. I had to pay 19%. No, you didn't. There are other options. Like, I don't know. I feel like people are just... Don't panic in the dealership, people. Take a deep cleansing breath and walk away and think about it and come back. They are going to sell you something. If you don't buy what they had and another guy buys it, they will find something else to sell you at a price you can afford and at a rate that you. They're not going to be like, you want to buy a car? No, we're not selling you one. You didn't buy the first one. We're out. Forget it.
Especially in the financing room. That's when the person's like using all this like essentially fake math. Like they're like, well,
it's terrible.
I think I went and bought a car once where the most we want to pay was $350 a month. And they kept saying, well, you're going to save this much on gas in this one. So even though it's $425, it's really $350 a month. I'm like, no, that's not how this works, because now my insurance is going up because
that's the way it works. when you look at the Tesla website. If you go to Tesla.com.
Yeah, they're like there's the purchase price and then the car. Yeah, you are presented with
they always default to your effective price.
Your effective price, which is a scam. Because you're going to have to pay for more, your insurance is going to go up. And especially the insurance. Your insurance is going up because you're getting a new car, or you're getting a newer car, or whatever, versus your old, whatever you're getting rid of. It's a lot of situations, like sort of against the consumer to get them hosed, essentially, when they're buying a car. And you really have to go in and say to yourself, I'm going to slow everything down.
Yes.
I'm not in a hurry. Take the whole day. Don't go in and be willing to walk away. Always be willing to say, you know what? I'm done. Because when you do that, that's when they find the car you said you wanted, and that's when they find the purchase price that you wanted. When you say, you know what, this isn't working for me, I'm going to leave. That's when you get the.
You know, I think people genuinely are afraid to walk out, Roberto. I think you're right. They think if I walk away, the deal is going to get worse. I'm going to pay a higher percentage rate. I'm going to get a lesser car. It's going to be a higher sticker. My deal is going to get worse. No, it's not. Like, there's so many
always
options.
the other way around.
It's the other way around. Don't be afraid. No matter how much you want that car, if it's not a financial deal, and take a deep breath. Like you said, don't go in and say, I got to buy a car in the next 2 hours. No, Saturday, we're going to buy a car.
Yeah.
Give yourself the whole day. So that you can walk away and say, I'm not going to get pressured into this. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, even just, you know what, I'm going to go get myself a coffee and I'll come back to you in half an hour. Just give your brain a second to really think about what they're offering and know that they are not going to let someone who wants to buy a car today walk away without a car. They will find a car that fits your budget and that fits you. And it might not be, the perfect, you might not be buying that $140,000 Mercedes, but you certainly aren't buying a $60,000 used Camry either. Don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm surprised that the loan debt isn't higher because the prices of used cars right now is the worst time to buy a car. Don't buy a car right now unless you absolutely positively have to. That's another thing.
Unless your engine blows up on the side of the road, don't buy one.
If it's running and you think it's going to last you at least another 18 months, just stick with that car right now, because right now is the worst possible time to buy a car. But I'm surprised that the auto loan debt isn't higher, didn't jump as much as I anticipated between 2019 and 2021. It just shows
what's happening.
It's always it just looks like it's a steady climb.
Well, this is data from second quarter of this year, so last spring.
Oh, okay.
So not quite. So it could actually be worse.
That was
supposed to be
before
better numbers.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. If we were to look at it right now or at the end of the year, it will be significantly worse. But you were saying earlier, Nicole, about that they won't have something to that you'll get a worse deal later. In fact, it's almost always the opposite, because thing you have to remember is car dealers, they've bought those cars. They've paid for them. In most cases, they're financing those cars. They didn't pay for them with cash in most cases, unless it's a used car lot, with a lot of old cheap cars. They're financing, they're paying interest on those cars. So it's in their interest to move that metal out, and they would prefer to sell you one now than later. So they want to get this out. If you wait another day or another week, chances are, if that car hasn't sold, you will get a better deal on it. So you are always,
there's a reason.
It's always to your advantage to wait.
And there's a reason, when you walk into a dealership, they ask you right away, once you want to test drive something, can I get your name? Can I get your phone number? Can I get your email? It's not because they just want to keep in touch with you because they like you. They want to make sure that if you walk away, they can call you and email you and follow up with you and get you to come back because they want you to buy a car. So it's like they want you, they're going to sell, they're not going to be we give up on her. She was here for half an hour and she's done. No, they're going to be after you hey, so we know that one didn't work out, but we got this better one at a better price or at a better this or a better that. They're going to want to sell you a car. And unless you need a car this instant, walk away if it's not what you want, and don't get sucked in by the bling and by the idea of a new car. And don't get flustered by it. The whole goal in that office is to fluster you into just saying, yes, sure, whatever, just get me out of here. Don't let them do that. Just don't let that be strong, people. Don't let them do that.
If your bank, bank or credit union offers you the opportunity to get pre-approved, for financing, and you can go into your bank and say, hey, I'm thinking about buying a car. I want to pay up to this much. If you can get it, and they're like, oh yeah, we can give it to you for 4% or 3% or 3.5% or whatever. Do that and have that 100%. Ready, because you might, if the dealer is like, oh, we can do it at 2.6%, you're like, okay, cool, I'm getting a better deal. But if they go in and they're like, well, what's the percentage rate? And they're like 5%, you can right there say, well, that's cool because I already have a loan ready to go.
Yeah, I don't need you and your stinking 5.
I don't need you and your 5 or your 14 or gosh, these people.
19. It's insane. Some of the numbers in this article are just
those rates.
bonkers.
I don't understand.
It's
You poor person, whoever you are. We're really sorry. Why didn't you talk to us first?
I know. We're sorry.
sorry.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, it's only this much a month. But then they spread it out over years, this insane percentage rate probably. And so you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm only paying $200 a month.
Doesn't
but you're
seem
paying
like you do
25% APR for the next 20 years.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's definitely to your benefit, especially if you're buying a used car. Most of the time, if you're buying a new car, if you can get financing through the manufacturer's financing arm, then you can often get a better deal there. But if you're buying a used car, you're almost always going to be better off, like you said, Robbie, going to your bank or your credit union and getting pre-approved. Look at what your budget is, how much you can afford, and say, can I get pre-approved for a $10,000 loan or a $15,000 loan? What's my interest rate going to be? And as you say, you walk in there and say, this is my budget. I want a car for this price, and what can you do? Because especially on the used car side, they're working with a bunch of different lending providers, and usually the dealership is getting some percentage back for that, for sending them the business. They essentially get an affiliate fee for sending that lender that business. So if you're paying 19%, there's a good chance 1 or 2% of that is going right back to that dealer that you bought from.
Yeah.
So be very thoughtful and don't rush into this stuff.
It's a big purchase. Don't feel pressured. You wouldn't buy a house on the spot because there was no other house you could buy. Don't buy a car on the spot because you think there's no other car you can buy.
Yeah, I mean, it is the second biggest purchase most people make after their house. So, all right. Let's answer a few other listener questions here. We've got, let's see, we hit everything else. Yeah, okay. Speedmaster on Twitter asked, I remember a few years ago, Ford made a big deal out of using aluminum in the F-Series to save hundreds of pounds. Why isn't this idea gaining more traction? Or is it, and I missed it? Well, I think, given how much a big deal Ford made out of it, I don't think that you would see other manufacturers, saying, "Hey, look, we copied Ford on the F-Series." But what we are seeing, Ford kind of went all in with aluminum bodies and beds for the F-Series. But what we're seeing with a lot of manufacturers is they're using more of a mixed material approach. So there is more aluminum being used. They're also using high strength steels, and deciding what materials to use where on a vehicle is a complex process because it depends on, is it a structural component or not? And when you use something like aluminum that is lighter, it's less dense. It's also not as strong. So to get the strength you need in some places, you have to actually make it thicker. So that offsets some of the weight savings, some or all of the weight savings. So what you see from most manufacturers is using a combination of a lot of different things, using different grades of steel, different grades of aluminum, in some cases some carbon fiber or magnesium, all kinds of different things to try to get to their weight targets. Any other thoughts?
No,
I think you're right. And I think, who was it? I can't remember the truck. What did I just drive? Was it the Tundra? I want to say they have aluminum, but they have cross members underneath it to give it extra support that are steel. So that, like you were talking about the combination, others aren't going all in with just the aluminum bed, but they're coming up with ways how can we mix and match these materials? I think that's where they're tending to go because although, as far as I know, the bed is doing fine on the Ford, there's still this it's like a tin can. I can crush it beneath the heel of my foot. And so people are still a little bit nervous about how well it's going to hold up. I mean, I think they've already proved that it's going to be fine, but.
Yeah, well, Chevy did do a commercial a few years ago where they had a front end loader with a bunch of cinder blocks that they brought in and dumped the cinder blocks into the bed of an F-150, and they were heavy enough that it actually did tear the aluminum, the bed of the aluminum bed of the truck, and then when they launched the current Sierra GMC Sierra a couple of years ago, they reprised that ad with a video because one of the options you can get on the Sierra is a carbon fiber bed. And so they did that with the carbon fiber, and the stuff just bounced right off of it and didn't even scratch it.
So they had us with a carbon fiber bed. They have at one of the doors, they handed us a baseball bat. And they said, have at it. And they literally were like, I'm like, really? I'm like, smack. They're like, Nicole. I'm like, oh, okay, smack. They're like, hit it like you mean it. I hit the thing as hard as I could. And there were some burly guys there that, like, one guy hit it so hard, the bat snapped in half. You wouldn't even know it had touched the bed. And he wailed on it. So those carbon fiber beds, they're something.
Yeah, they're pretty tough. All right. From AJ, at Gupta AJ, he asks, BRZ or G86? Strictly your gut feelings.
I own a BRZ, so my gut feelings is the BRZ looks better, but that's just me because I own a BRZ. So my gut feeling is I like the BRZ because it looks cooler, but it is really just down to what do you think looks cooler, AJ, because it's the same car. BRZ.
GR86. I like the logo for the GR86.
There you go.
The way they do the little 86.
There you go.
I mean, I had to gut feeling. Boom. There you go.
I'll take whatever one I can get my hands on because there's not enough difference to fight over. All right. David Levine. This was actually a question that came in last week after we recorded. Said this was about the Hertz Tesla deal. I was wondering if the equity group that now owns Hertz has a large stock position in Tesla. This is a great way to This would be a great way to manipulate the stock to their advantage. How many years will it take to fill the order? So I don't know. It's possible that there's some cross ownership between the Hertz ownership group now and Tesla. They may own some Tesla stock, and I would frankly be surprised if they don't own some Tesla stock. A lot of people do now, but. It would be an interesting way to manipulate the stock. But in that case, it's also kind of obvious. SEC knows who owns large chunks of Tesla stock. They know who owns Hertz, and if they were doing something like this, that could be problematic and could have the SEC coming after you. As far as how many years it'll take to fill the order, the announcement was that they expect these to be filled by the end of 2022, so roughly a year. And with Tesla having 2 new factories supposed to come online early next year, they're going to have a hell of a lot of extra production capacity that they don't have today. So they'll have plenty of room to build cars for Hertz. Yeah. And I'm sure that they're probably looking for deals at other rental companies to sell cars to as well. And it's funny how when this deal was announced, everybody, all the investors got all excited and they ran up the stock price again, this week. And
it's over
any other automaker that announced, they're selling 100,000 cars to a car rental agency, their stock would be going down because the reason why usually sales to car rental companies are low margin sales. Yeah. Or no margin sales because they usually sell them to the rental companies as a last resort to, get rid of excess inventory. And, it's possible that that's, part of this deal. Another piece of this deal as well is that I think that Uber is actually paying a significant chunk to get Hertz to buy these cars because Uber made an announcement last year that they wanted to have, and Lyft also made a similar announcement that they wanted to have their drivers switch over to all electric by 2030, which is fine, but it's also hard for them to do because Lyft and Uber don't own any of their vehicles. They don't operate their own fleets. They rely on drivers to bring the vehicles. But drivers can't always afford to buy cars like Teslas or other EVs. And so 50,000 of these 100,000 cars that Hertz ordered are actually set aside to rent to Uber drivers, through the short-term rental programs that they have. And these are subsidized loans. So my guess is that Uber is actually probably paying for a significant chunk of at least those 50,000 cars.
there's a reason why you saw a lot of Nissans in rental fleets for the last couple of years because no one was buying Nissans. They just weren't doing very well as a company. Their cars weren't that exciting. They were just sort of long in the tooth, and so like seeing a bunch of Nissans in the rental fleet is like, ugh. So like the Teslas in the rental fleet, you're like, okay, but then anything that happens with Tesla, like inflates the price, and the Tesla price is it's inflated. Tesla shouldn't be worth more than companies that are selling millions of cars, regardless of how Elon says they're changing the world or whatnot. But the stock market isn't the real world. The stock market isn't the economy. The stock market isn't. It's not an indicator of how the real world works. Because if it was, it would be it's fun gambling. With your it's fun gambling with your retirement. That's what it is.
Oh boy!
But those Teslas need to have. I feel like those Teslas need to have. I don't know if they're going to be able to pull it off. But when I get into a rental car, I want CarPlay or Android Auto. Because I don't want to figure out how to use their. I just want to plug my phone in and go to the place I want to go and listen to my music or my podcast. I just want to get in.
My husband literally, when he rents a car, because he doesn't know, I'm better equipped to know exactly which cars do and don't. He's like, this is what's in the lot. Click, 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 click. Which one of these do I take? I'm like, that one probably has it, and that one probably has it. So he literally looks for cars, which one to take, based on whether they have Apple CarPlay or not.
Yeah, I don't.
So your point is valid.
If there's like a higher value car, they're offering a higher value car and a lower value car. If the higher value car doesn't have CarPlay, I'm like, no. Just because I have places to go. I just need four wheels, a steering wheel, and a map to tell me how to get to this place and this area that I'm unaware of. I don't want to mess around
trying to figure out.
Yeah, I don't want to learn Entune. I don't want to. Yeah, I just want to get to where I'm going to go. So it'll be interesting.
You've been on a plane flight or something or whatever. You're like, I just want to get to my hotel. I just want to get to wherever I need to be. I don't want to futz around with having to figure out how to get navigation to work on this stupid thing. Let me use my Apple CarPlay. Yeah.
So we'll see how that works out. I wonder if they'll be selling like little how when you get a car, sometimes they try to sell you the TomTom GPS system. You're like, what year is this? We all have phones.
Welcome to 1995.
I'll still like see it pop up. Be like, would you like? I'm like, no. What? No. And so I wonder if they'll like be renting or selling little phone holders, so you can just like pop your phone onto the windshield, so you can see see where you're going. Like, well, at least I got Google Maps on my phone. And it's not that's not a knock against Tesla's infotainment system. It's just like you just want to get in and use something that is you're already in a weird unfamiliar car, and you just want to have something that's familiar in a city that you don't know or a town or country or whatever. And we'll see.
Yep, agreed.
It probably won't happen though.
We'll see.
All right. And that is all we have. Any final thoughts?
No final thoughts. Happy Halloween. I guess everyone's going to hear this after Halloween. Hope your haul was good on Halloween then. Hope you stole all the candy you wanted to steal from your kids.
Hope you got lots of Reese's and Snickers, full size.
Right.
High value candy.
What's the worst candy? What's the one you hope you don't get? Raisins. Hope none of you got raisins.
I like raisins.
Yeah.
What is wrong with you? Who wants raisins in their candy? What?
I like raisins. Just even as a little kid, I liked raisins. But what's a bad candy? Oh, those circus peanuts.
Oh, Smarties are kind of a bad
I like Smarties. Yeah. No, circus peanuts. You ever eaten a circus peanut?
So basically
those
what we
big
need to
puffy
do
orange peanuts. They don't have any flavor. They're just big and orange and puffy. You're like, what is this thing?
Okay.
It's like
hope
eating
you didn't get any
styrofoam.
circus peanuts. I hope you got Snickers and Reese's. And if you're a lunatic like Roberto, I hope you got some raisins.
Well, I mean, I like raisins. I don't know if I want raisins over like Sour Patch.
Oh, now he's backtracking.
No, I like raisins. If I got raisins, I wouldn't be upset. If I got like those circus peanuts, though, I'd be sort of angry. Or change.
Fair.
Or a pencil. Come on.
Pencil. Sticker.
Use a sticker. Unless that sticker is like no.
We hand out king size candy, so we got it covered. King size candy, Reese's, Snickers, all that. Yeah, we're that house. It makes my husband happy. We have to take out an extra mortgage to buy it all, but it makes my husband happy. So
yay!
All right. On that note, we'll talk to you all next week. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.